Hello. I'm a housewife who is entering my mid-30s this year, and I have been considered a somewhat successful businesswoman. The food-related business that I started with my mother became a success to get to where I am now. This is the story of when I was newly married as a bride in my late 20s, just before I achieved my success. Was it because I was influenced by my mother, who had extraordinary cooking skills? Perhaps. I majored in food and nutrition in college. As soon as I graduated, I immediately started working in the office at a food manufacturing company. The boyfriend I started dating around that time is my current husband. My husband had graduated from the same college, majoring in hotel management, and just started working for a hotel for the first time. Both of us came from struggling families, so we spent our first year at the job working very fiercely. Because of that, our dating period had been quite long. We were able to sustain that long love affair, of course thanks to our deep love, but my mother's great cooking was also a big help. My boyfriend said that the food cooked at his home was not good, and he waited and welcomed whenever my mother sometimes invited and prepared food for him. My mother and I decided that he would be a great husband and a son-in-law for my mom whenever we watched him clear the plate every time. After dating for a long time, when we got settled in at our respective jobs, we naturally started to prepare for our wedding. I could understand why he hated his mother's cooking so much. The problem was his mother, who was fanatical about health and stressed that the secret to health was to be a vegetarian. She was a strict vegetarian to the extent that when her husband made a reservation at a restaurant for the meeting, both sides of our families, she didn't like that the restaurant wasn't vegetarian and brought her own food. She started to complain about the food at the restaurant, as she displayed all uncooked vegetables on the table. When we saw her, my mom and I thought there were a variety of people in this world. I don't know whether they are serving food at this place for the people to eat and die. My goodness, she said. You must like vegetables. I see you think that way. However, aren't there a lot of menus here that don't have any meat in them? It may seem like that, but I can't trust the food that's bought outside. I beg your pardon? There isn't anything that would not have some animal ingredients in the food. There are many animal substances in the sauces and soups. Even the consommés is animal substances. If it's fish-based, all those are poisonous. The poison that kills people. Oh, I see. Have you ever heard the term vegan? Vegan is a term used to refer to vegetarians who do not eat meat, poultry, eggs, fish, or dairy product. My mother-in-law was a very unique type of vegetarian who combined her own values for a vegan style. Should I say it, she was a vegetarian who ate almost all of her food raw? She doesn't cook her food and eats it raw or dried in its natural state. The only food she ate cooked was rice. To briefly explain, my mother-in-law's menu is as follows. She would have cooked rice with sliced raw carrots, cucumbers, dried zucchini, and eggplant, comprised only of raw vegetables. She would have only salt to dip her vegetables. She never had any sauces or condiments on the table. Of course, just because my mother-in-law is a vegetarian, I'm not trying to put her down. There are as many different ways of life as there are people in the world, and vegetarians are just one type of them. Except for advocating any crimes. I think that as much as every way of life deserves respect, my mother-in-law's vegetarian diet should also be respected. But the problem was that my mother-in-law was forcing her own vegetarianism on the others. After I got married, I spent some time without major problems because the distance between my in-laws and our home was quite far away, and my husband was a strong shield for me. Then one day, honey, please tell me the one gift you want to receive the most right now. A gift? Did you get your bonus? Not material things, hon. Did your mother get a boyfriend? That would be great. She must have been very lonely by herself. What are saying? I'm talking about us right now. You didn't even notice, did you? What? I know what. Thank you, honey. You worked hard. Let's work harder in the future. Aren't you going to ask if it's a son or daughter? That's not important. Whether it's a son or daughter, you just have to give birth to a healthy child and raise him well. But I stared at him unhappily. Why are you staring at me like that? Your expression doesn't look like a happy person. Why? Is being a father burdensome? Then my husband confessed. Rather than a burden, well, it's not something to hide. I took the opportunity to be trained abroad. I think I'll be working in a hotel abroad for 3 or 4 years. Hey, what can they say again? That's a good thing. Before you are the parent of the child to be born, you have your life too. The child will be taken care of by me and my mother. Go with peace of mind. Thank you for your kind talk, but I keep worrying about my mother. What about your mom? Vegetarianism? Don't worry. How would she even force it on her pregnant daughter-in-law? Still. I feel a little. Are you sure you would be really okay, of course? I'll protect my family. Do you trust your wife my husband left for the overseas training with my full support left alone? I did my best as a pregnant woman and as a member of society. Then one day, I received an unexpected diagnosis. I was diagnosed with a risk of miscarriage. Fortunately, it wasn't a huge risk. The risk was very, very slightly higher than that of other pregnant women in the early stages of pregnancy, but I didn't have to worry too much about it. However, it seemed that my mother-in-law, who was only looking for a chance to spread her strange form of vegetarianism to me, heard the news of my possible miscarriage, which gave her the excuse. As soon as I got the diagnosis, she called me to her house and sat me down at the table. Her table, of course, had a vegetarian meal prepared in my mother-in-law's style. I heard about it through her mom. Are there any signs of miscarriage? Fortunately, it's not serious. I was talking about refraining from strenuous exercise for the time being, which puts too much strain on the body, but it's not about taking any medicine or getting treatment. Hey, that's not something that should come out of the mouth of a mother-to-be. Honestly, who is it that's responsible for the fetus being in a dangerous condition? It's all because of you. Are you trying to say that I'm eating food recklessly now? Of course. Humans were originally vegetarian animals, but if they eat animal ingredients recklessly, there'll be risks of miscarriages. That's what I mean. Mother, there are some essential nutrients necessary for a person to live a healthy life. Be quiet. From today, come here for dinner every evening. If you listen to me for a second, I prepare the whole diet, so take it with you and keep it. I'll check it from time to time to see if it's being followed so I know. Keep that in mind, no animal seasonings or broth. Animal food is poisonous to humans. Too again. I respected my mother-in-law's vegetarian diet, but I couldn't really respect it when she forced it blindly on me. I majored in food and nutrition. I couldn't be unaware that my mother-in-law's diet was very deficient in essential nutrients. No, even if you had seen it, you'd think it was a seriously problematic diet plan. Ernie, I was pregnant. Pregnant women need to eat much better than normal people. But to force such a pregnant woman to eat a strange vegetarian diet, which was not a normal vegetarian diet where everything was almost raw, was not right. Nevertheless, my mother-in-law kept pushing me to eat her own vegetarian style. Regardless of her insistence, I also pretended to only eat dinner at my in-laws as a vegetarian while eating the other meals contained a balanced amount of nutrients. The reason why I pretended to cater to my mother-in-law's vegetarian diet was simple. Even if the risk of miscarriage was not enough to worry about, the signs of miscarriage were not very good news. I thought that I could not be stressed because of the frictions with my mother-in-law, in a situation where I was worried about every action. Fortunately, my own mom gave me a lot of help to keep me and the unborn child healthy. She cooked new meals daily and brought them over for me. Thanks to her food, which tasted delicious and had high nutritional values, I was able to overcome the risks of miscarriage. But my mother-in-law accused me, "Hey, even though I'm your mother-in-law, think of me as your mom and tell me frankly." What in me? Did you eat meat during the day? What are you talking about? What do you mean? I'm asking because I could smell meat from you. For a moment, I was so shocked. Did my mother-in-law have superpowers? I wondered. I ate beef vegetable soup for lunch that day. Perhaps she read my expression and she started to shout at me. Just know that the more you do this, the more harm you can do to your child's health. How could a mother be killing her fetus in her womb? Even so, you're talking too harshly. You don't even know who is the one actually harming the health of the fetus. The my cuskers, oh mine. I should not say anything more. Rather than silently watching your miscarriage happen, the only choice is to stay close to you and take care of you myself. She went straight home and packed her belongings to the hilt and left her house. Soon, the place she dragged me was to my home. Before I could say anything, my mother-in-law unpacked her stuff in our master bedroom, and I was suddenly driven out into a small room. The biggest problem was that there was no way out of my mother-in-law's bizarre vegan compulsion, because she was now living in the same house. It was natural for her to have breakfast and dinner together, even for lunch at my work, as my mother-in-law said she would pack my lunch. Of course, everything except rice was raw, vegan, vegetarian-style lunchbox. My first thoughts were to accommodate my mother-in-law to some extent, but it turned out that every moment I had to spend with my mother-in-law became painful and stressful itself. She would stay close to me all the time at home and made me study vegetarianism. As a food and nutrition major, there were things I couldn't agree with. After trying her ways, I decided that I couldn't let it go on like this. So I decided to stand my ground against my mother-in-law. What is the reason for doing this? You also heard it, so you know. The risk of my miscarriage is over now. I told her, but who said that? Everything is fine, so can you rest assured? In my eyes, nothing will be okay. She insisted. Who is like that? You went to the obstetrics together, and you heard about it clearly. Why are you trying to force your ridiculous vegan vegetarianism? And now are you going to make the specialist doctor into a liar? You're just always like that. When I say one word, you have to understand two words, but you can't understand a single word properly. What is it that I don't understand? Meat ingredients are poison. The poison that enters your mouth accumulates in the fetus. The meat ingredients are never poisonous. It is true that nutrients that enter my mouth are passed on to the fetus, but it is not poisonous in the first place. There's nothing wrong with that. Rather, it is important to consume enough essential nutrients. Humans are originally vegetarian animals, so why wouldn't meat ingredients be poisonous? Consular. If you look at it scientifically and historically, people are not vegetarian animals. But there are omnivores who eat both vegetables with a carnivorous diet. If you don't like that fact, you can just keep the vegetarian diet and live accordingly. Don't force it. Remind. I must convert you into a vegetarian. I have to do it for my grandchildren. To say the least, meat ingredients are poison which will be accumulated in you and will remain in breast milk and go to my grandchildren. How can I just watch it from a grandma's point of view? Mother, I hope that my grandson will become a vegetarian from birth and doesn't know anything about gross meat. I want to lead him to the right life. That's my honest truth. By then, I was at a loss for words. No, if I drank and smoked, I could understand. But I was saying that I was following the mode, at least scientifically, a fetus and myself by consuming essential nutrients evenly, even after the child was born, how important it was to intake of essential nutrients for the healthy growth of children. That is why even in Buddhist temples these days, even the little monks are given meat on purpose. However, when a mother-in-law and a person who will become grandmother only opens her mouth and says, "Hooray for vegetarians." Humans are vegetarians, meat ingredients are poison. As she continued like that, what more could I say to her? There was only so much I could do, and it would be useless to talk to her more, so our quarrels like that continued for a while. When I tried to tell my mother-in-law to go back to her house, she wouldn't hear of it. Meanwhile, my diet was full of weird vegetarian dishes I hadn't eaten properly for a long time, and I was under extreme stress that I ended up collapsing while working at the company. The cause of the collapse was, of course, malnutrition and extreme stress. The most shocking thing was that my malnutrition caused the fetus to be at a higher risk of miscarriage. As I listened to the diagnosis from the obstetrician, a horrifying thought ran through my mind. If my mother-in-law was by my side like this, the same threat could come to me and my baby at any time. No, it will definitely come. Even if I had my baby safely, my mother-in-law would not only enforce it on me, but on my baby to eat her strange vegetarian food. And it'll be a threat to my child's health. So I decided to keep my mother-in-law away from me and my fetus. But the moment when my mom and I came back home with that resolution in mind, we saw a shocking scene unfolded in front of us. My mom's food, which she prepared for me, that was stocked up in the refrigerator, was being given to the neighborhood stray dogs by my mother-in-law. It wasn't just any food, but the food my mom spent all night cooking. So carefully, I became enraged. Eventually, do you know what you're doing now? I'm just throwing out this poisonous garbage as dog food. Why is that even a problem? You don't even care what kind of food they are, do you? How could you call this food? Oh, really? Yes, vegetarian. Good. What's wrong with that? Because people have their own values. I respect that. Yeah. Oops, now you've got the right idea? But it's not. I don't agree with your claims that animal ingredients are poison, or that the strange vegetarian diet that you claim is healthy. You force your own values on others in this ridiculous way. I can no longer respect it. You have nothing to agree with, and nothing to respect. Since it's the elder who's telling you, you should just play dead and do as I tell you. I have just come back from the emergency room right now. I collapsed while working. Did you eat me by any chance? I knew you would do that behind my back and ended up like that. I fainted because I didn't eat properly. At malnutrition. It's also due to the stress I've received from your strange vegan compulsion. For me and the fetus, the poison was not animal food, but you, mother, itself? Are you putting yourself up for your pride just because you are in front of your mother right now? How could you be so mannerless? I have no manners because there is a reason for that. I plan to not see you from now on. So you want to sever ties with me? Who says you could? I'm sorry, but I ended the call with your son who's training abroad. Oh, now he is my husband, not your son. Since I don't want to see you anymore, so leave here quickly. I'll send your luggage by courier. So that's how I severed my ties with my mother-in-law. To be honest, I felt so great. I was relieved to see my mother-in-law turning around and leave without making a sound because the cause that threatened the health of me and the fetus was gone. My mom worked very hard for me and my unborn baby. Instead of my unreasonable mother-in-law, she came to her house and made me 3 meals a day that were both delicious and nutritious. Thanks to her, I was able to recover my health quickly. I gave birth to a son who is healthy and robust. He's an adorable child that is not worth changing with anything in the world. At that time, I was on maternity leave, and while taking care of my son, I also came up with a new business. It was a food manufacturing business using my mother's wonderful cooking skills. As expected, my mother's cooking skills were amazing. The food manufacturing business that started using my mother's recipe truly made a big hit. By the time my first child turned 2 years old, supply contracts had already been signed with several catering establishments, and the business that started in a small space quickly reached the point of setting up a large factory. My mother and I were having a hectic schedule because of business trips in a row to expand our business. Shortly after, on the day when my mother and I returned to the factory after a long absence from all business trips, my mother and I faced an absurd situation. Picture among the new cafeteria workers in the factory, there was my mother-in-law with whom I had severed ties. My mother-in-law was also surprised and she spoke to me first. She said, "Hey, don't look at me like that. I didn't know you were in this company. Today is my first day here. This is a company. I'm the president. You need to watch how you talk and keep your etiquette. Hey, we have spent time together. So why do you need to be so formal? We have spent time together. So why do you need to be so formal? I want to tell you to distinguish between personal and business matters. Even with my mother, we respect the formalities. Anyway, please go back to your work. You can listen for more details from the staff. Are you saying you don't even want to talk with me? Aren't you? Didn't you hear me? I'm the CEO here. You mean you don't want to talk with me at all? I'm going to ask the HR manager about the hiring, so please do your work. Straight away. I asked the HR staff about my mother-in-law's work. It was a hiring case, while my mom and I were busy on a business trip. Of course, the HR manager didn't even know that she was my mother-in-law. He didn't even know I had severed my ties with her. I started to ponder briefly about what to do about my mother-in-law. Due to my mother-in-law's extreme vegetarian diet, her health had been seriously damaged, and she had used up her limited money for the cost of her treatment, making her look very desperate. It wasn't that I felt pity because she was my mother-in-law who was in a miserable condition. She was an employee who had already been hired, and I wasn't a bad enough boss to cold-heartedly fire an employee who was struggling. If I fired an employee right away, the pride of the HR staff would be hurt as well. Thus, if my mother-in-law had been quiet and just worked hard, I would have maintained her employment as the president of the company. But shortly after my mother-in-law began working, there were complaints filed by my staff. They said that the cafeteria food had become very strange. After receiving the complaint, I immediately checked the taste of the food in the cafeteria. Then I knew it. It must have been the work of my mother-in-law. I just got the feeling. Did you tamper with the cafeteria food recipe? What are you talking about? No, what are you talking about? It's outside the company, so you can talk comfortably. You should deceive the person who can be deceived. I could tell immediately when I tasted the food. Oh no, the food that our employees eat should be healthy. From thinking about the employees, what was wrong with the cafeteria food? Meat ingredients? That meat ingredients are poisonous? Probably so. So was. My mother-in-law was the cause of the complaint that the taste of the food in the cafeteria had changed. My mother-in-law tampered with the cafeteria recipe secretly. She would do things like leaving the meat out of soup deliberately not adding meat broth by using fresh water, and so forth. So the food didn't taste right. Even worse, that made me feel angry was the cafeteria diet was one of the most important things in the company. If the food preparation company's cafeteria meals are not good, the morale of the employees would drop a lot. Our company was a food company, so based on my mother's food skills, it was the cafeteria that I paid much attention to so that I could satisfy both the taste and the nutrition while living up to my major in food and nutrition and company reputation. But I held back my anger. Then, as the founder and president of the company, I decided to give my mother-in-law her last chance. Okay, let's pretend that the past didn't happen. Would you do that? There is one condition instead. The conditions? Tell me, if I continue working here, I'll listen. Don't touch the recipes of the cafeteria. Don't force vegetarianism on others. I'll respect your values, so please respect other people's eating habits as well. It can't be. Can't you meet my conditions? No matter how much the cafeteria food is eaten only by the staff, from the standpoint of a truly modern person, it cannot be said that the poison is not poison. As long as I can get my hands on it, animal ingredients are absolutely unacceptable. If so, then we'll have to fire you on the spot. Go with the HR staff and tell them that you've been fired. They'll guide you through the proper procedure. If the company has any responsibilities due to the dismissal, I'll take care of all of them without exception. Hey, why be so harsh again? I've nowhere else to go except here. At this age, part-time jobs at restaurants are the only jobs available. It's not that easy even, not at all. Why isn't it easy? It's obvious. Even in those restaurants, you'd be kicked out for doing your nonsensical vegetarian blah blah. Haven't you? I'm sorry, but so is our company. I can't hire someone who tampers with food in the cafeteria. In the end, my mother-in-law was fired on the spot. We finally put an end to a long, incompatible relationship. So now in my mid-30s, I have protected my first child from my mother-in-law's insistence on being vegetarian. After that, I'm raising my first and my second child in good health. My mother and my husband, who came back from overseas training, are teaching our children the eating habit of chewing and eating well without being picky about food. The business is doing great with the number of restaurants that we supply. Our food is in high demand. How is my mother-in-law? It is rumored that she works part-time from one restaurant to another, barely making a living. Even at those restaurants, she often gets kicked out for imposing a vegetarian diet on their customers. She tried it with me once, then she tampered with our company recipe and another time, so she was kicked out twice. Even if she is barely making it, she still hasn't changed her habit. This is why people say that people can't be changed that easily. Swing with her wrongful belief, she's not only making herself sick, but also making those around her sick, which is scary when you think about it. It's on behalf of myself and my family. I strive to live my life with a healthy mind and body. My story ends here. Thank you for listening. Have a delicious and healthy day. Please support me and share your words of wisdom in the comments section. Liking and subscribing would be a great help to me. Have a wonderful day.